The life and death of Alfie Evans was tragic, which is why we cannot let his life pass without talking about the rights of his parents and others like them who fight to save the lives of their terminally ill children while being dragged through the courts for it. I despair at the arrogance of some doctors who have no cure for a terminally ill child, yet refuse to let them be taken to a country where there might be one. Yes, doctors are trained to make life and death decisions, but parents are genetically programmed to fight, literally to the death, for their kids. They're programmed to ignore doctors who say they can't be saved, to flee the country like Asher King's parents did. If they'd heeded doctors and the courts, their little boy could be dead, not alive, happy and cancer-free. We'll never know whether Alfie could have had some kind of life had he gone to Italy for treatment. But his mum and dad never stood a chance against the might of the legal and medical professions. And the agony they live with now is knowing their beautiful baby boy could have had one last shot at life, but a British court denied it.
Yes, I mean, Carole, what can I say? It's terribly tragic. And you mentioned a few other examples. Of course, there's Charlie Gard,
yes,
who passed away last July, and we all remember that because it similarly was a case that caught the national attention. I don't understand in this case why the Pope wasn't granted his wish, because he, of course, I'll just read to you what he said. He said, "It's my sincere hope that everything necessary may be done in order to continue compassionately accompanying little Alfie Evans, and that the deep suffering of his parents may be heard. I am praying for Alfie, for his family and for all those who are involved." And he directly intervened in that way on social media, and then asked for Alfie to be brought to to Italy and be given a passport there and treatment there at a hospital, and it wasn't granted. I find it hard to find anything wrong in what you say, because, of course, having recently become a parent again with a one-year-old, I know what I would do in that situation.
Anything.
Everything.
Yes.
There is only one case where I suppose where I'd ask you a question to see what your view is, because if the roles are reversed, yes, a parent will do everything and anything to save their child, and the state probably shouldn't have too much of a say over that. But the other way around, if a parent refused treatment to their child, for their child, when it's known that that treatment could save the child's life, say, for example, the parent was a Jehovah's Witness, what do you think in that situation should happen?
I don't think we should even apply that, because it doesn't apply to this situation. We're talking about here, you know, it's one thing, Majid, to give up the fight for a child's life. It's completely another thing to say, but you're going to die here. You can't go anywhere else. And, you know, we can't pretend that other countries do not have more advanced treatments than ours. And I just think it's crazy of our... There seems to be institutionally averse in the NHS to letting people go and have these experimental treatments. And with this little boy, you know, the doctors can't on the one hand say that to let him travel to Italy would cause him distress and suffering, and on the other hand say he's completely brain dead and can't feel anything, including pain. You know, those two assumptions cannot be true. So what was to stop the doctors in this country giving this little boy one last shot at life? It might never have worked. It might not have. But he was, you know, if what the doctors here say, he was going to die anyway.
Yeah,
so
well,
why
they
not?
turned it off anyway, weren't they? They voted to turn it off. So why couldn't they just give him, you know, a stay of whatever? It's awful that you should even have to say a stay. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
Give the kid the chance to life.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I just think the whole thing's shocking from top to bottom.
I feel like we're getting some of the facts wrong. Carole, I think it's good you brought up this topic. I find these topics painful because it's tragic and it's so awful. I cannot put myself in the shoes of those parents. I have no idea what it must be like, and there's no good outcome when a child is this sick. I'm just going to read you something from the judgment in the High Court that you referred to. So this is from Mr. Justice Hayden, who said, he, talking about Alfie, requires peace, quiet and privacy in order that he may conclude his life as he has lived it with dignity. It was entirely right that every reasonable option should be explored for Alfie. I am now confident that this has occurred. The continued provision of ventilation in circumstances which I am persuaded is futile now compromises Alfie's future dignity and fails to respect his autonomy. I am satisfied that continued ventilatory support is no longer in Alfie's best interest. The reason that I feel like we're getting some of the facts wrong is because, unlike Charlie Gard's case, where there was a prospect of treatment that could have cured him or alleviated his condition, in this case, case, there was no prospect of something that could actually help Alfie get better.
The question was... I'm sorry, this is wrong.
The question was ventilatory support that would keep him alive, but it wasn't offering him a cure or an improvement of his condition. And also, I think that, you know, to say that parents should be allowed to do whatever they like.
I didn't say that.
The Children's Act.
I didn't say
you didn't.
that.
You said parents should, you know, you're right. Parents are programmed to fight. I agree, of course, but they do have a say. The Children's Act, which this was decided under, was a huge step forwards in making the child's best interest, not the parents' wishes, not the Pope's wishes, but the child's best interests, the centre of any judgment. And in this case, I don't know if you know the history of this case, but...
Of course we do.
Just after Charlie Gard died, a Catholic fundamentalist in Italy found this family and started advocating their case. And there's real concern. In fact, there's an investigation about the role that one particular fundamentalist Christian charity played.
Who said they would... I've just got on that quote. I just want to clarify, the doctors did also say that they believe it's unlikely Alfie feels pain or has sensation of discomfort, but I cannot completely be certain of this since Alfie has no way of communicating this. So it's not certain that he didn't. He did or didn't feel pain.
As some of you know already, I find this difficult to talk about because, of course, it pertains to my brother, who I think you knew, who had a major road accident, and he was much older. He was 17, and my parents were told he would die, and they just wanted to harvest his organs, and my parents said no, we'll keep him, and he went on to live for 34 years and worked as a reporter on the Daily Mirror. So doctors, often for the right reasons, sometimes get it wrong, as they did. But I think it's more nuanced. I think it's more nuanced than this. Let's just hear, and we'll come back to you, Phil, I promise. Let's just hear. This is from the Emeritus Professor of Medical Ethics at the Imperial College London, Rhiannon Gillon.
My view is that the court was quite right to say that the doctors shouldn't have to provide a treatment that they believe to be wrong against the child's best interests. What I don't think the court should have done is said that no other doctors should be allowed to provide treatment that the parents believe in, believe to be in the child's best interests.
Phil, I think that is the nuanced debate we need to have, because he's saying that he understands the court said what it did, but his problem is, and I agree, they didn't have the right to deny any other. So if the doctors in Liverpool say, we've gone as far as we can, OK, I respect you. Yep. If doctors in Italy say, well, actually, we think, then the parents should be afforded the opportunity to say, thank you, Liverpool, we're off to Italy.
Who is this court to make that final decision? You know, unless you're of a higher order or another being or your name's God, the signature on that piece of paper needs to be someone of an outworld experience, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, the higher order in the form of the Pope actually believed it.
He did as well. So what I'm saying is, right, who are they to turn around and say this little child shouldn't be able to take... Somebody's offering something, let's take it. The staff of that hospital worked extremely hard, and I'm sure they did everything that was possible to save the kid, all right? But the facts were they ran out of options. Now, if somebody else was offering an option and it was my child, OK, all right, then I know where I would have gone every time. And I don't think anybody who's a parent could put their hand on their heart and say, if somebody was offering me a lifeline of my child, no matter even if it was a thread that thin, I'd turn it away. There's absolutely no way.
And what was to lose anyway? If the doctors here had no hope for him, if they had no treatment for him...
Only if they prolonged it... Were they prolonging the lad's suffering?
No, but
is the key.
like I said in the start, they made two assertions. First of all, they say this would induce suffering if he had to travel. On the other hand, they say he's completely brain dead and can feel nothing, including pain.
They said they couldn't be sure whether he would be suffering.
And this was an undiagnosed brain condition. They didn't actually know what it was. And so they can't make pronouncements like they didn't say he wouldn't have any kind of life if he did survive. They can't possibly say that. And Phil's right. If, you know, the parents now have to live with this. You know, parents, you know, parental love is the most powerful force on this planet, and I think it wasn't respected here. And I think those parents, Tom and Kate, now have to live the rest of their lives knowing they may have been an option for their little boy and they were denied it. And, you know, I'm all for sovereignty of the British courts, but if it means treating people like Tom and Kate with the kind of unchristian utilitarianism that was evident in this case, I'm not for it anymore.
Carole, we have rule of law, and this is a secular society. And you know, these cases are a huge dilemma. I'm not pretending. The law is not always right. The courts aren't always right. No. But in this case, there are lots of things that ring alarm bells for me. For example, these parents there are serious concerns that their interests, and I agree with you, you know, parents want the best thing for their children. Their love for their children is unmatched by anything else. But it's not it's not without precedent that a group with its own motives can hijack cases like this and influence parents.
Do you really think that's
These
what drove
parents
those
were
parents,
encouraged,
their life of their child?
These parents were
to
encouraged by this group to bring a private prosecution against the doctors for murder, Carole.
No, but can I ask you why, if there is a group in Italy, and I haven't heard of this, but if there is a group in Italy, the religious group that was seeking to exploit the parents by getting them to Italy, why would that make any difference in the future of whether the child itself could be cured? What difference would it make to the actual medical issues?
If you read the judgment, the judge was very concerned that they'd had bad and impartial and improper advice from this group, from people who weren't trained lawyers, who were fanatical, who were giving them false hope.
Asher King's parents had bad advice from the NHS.
The court ultimately gave the parents the right to give Asher King the treatment he wanted.
They refused.
In the end, they were given the right.
No, they were not. They were international. They were hunted on a warrant, Asher, that they used to catch terrorists.
In the end, the court gave the parents the right to have the treatment.
Let's hear what Tom Evans has to say about his little baby.
Yeah, they'll let me go to Italy, or they at least give me the grace and the dignity to take him home to see out whatever days or weeks that he may remain. So I think the doctors now need to sit down amongst themselves and say, would it be the right thing, and is there a way out of this for us? Because if we put him on the plane, he would have been there. The doctor said he would have died, so he's already proved them wrong, and he can clearly do a flight without a ventilator. So, you know, this can't go on. He's got to be saved. He's got to be saved today in the next hour or two, and I will be doing all I can to do that.
See, Tom Evans now has to live with the knowledge that his baby lived for 4 days after he was taken off the ventilator, and the doctor said he would die almost immediately. He could have been in Italy. And whether it worked or whether it didn't, Afua, it doesn't matter. They would have felt they had done their duty as parents by doing everything.
It's not about them, it's about the child.
It's about
Alfie.
Well.
No, it's about Alfie.
It's about
Alfie's
get this one together, are you?
It's about
You're not going to agree on this one.
It's about all
my shirt and your shirt. They're never going to look good in each other. You know what I mean? Unbelievable, isn't it?
Get that earpiece in.
It's my earpiece is falling out because she's talking it out of my ear. Do you know what I mean?